Continuing now with our special coverage of this historic day in Egypt, Dr. Richard Haas is president of the Council on Foreign Relations, a nonpartisan think tank. Richard, it seems to me the military is saying all the right things, but what concrete steps need to happen?
It took 18 days to get rid of President Mubarak. It's going to take a lot more than 18 days to now get it right. They've got to open up the political space, develop political parties, let them essentially do what you do in a democracy, or at least in an open political system. They've got to get the economy going. They've got to write a new constitution. They've got to build something with checks and balances that will basically make sure that this thing works if and when it gets back on the rails.
And the people have to be patient because all these things take time.
Indeed, it's almost the Goldilocks challenge. You need to go slow enough for all these things to happen, all these reforms. You need to go fast enough in order that people don't get impatient. Getting this speed right, the pacing right, extraordinarily difficult.
Meanwhile, the Obama administration has to continue a delicate balancing act. It has to kind of gently guide the process without being too heavy-handed because there's a lot of anti-American sentiment in Egypt.
Exactly right. We almost have to get rid of the word must in telling the Egyptians what they need to do. We might want to advise or suggest. We should do a lot of it in private. We should help them. They're going to need help writing a new constitution. They're going to need help politically. They're certainly going to need help economically. But we've got to be very careful with the substance and the tone of what we do.
And how destabilizing is this for other countries in the region? And could it reignite protests in Iran, for example?
The short answer is it really depends. In Iraq, for example, we learned that when things went really badly, it gave democracy a bad name. It scared people around the region. I think there's going to be a lot of watching, a lot of wait and seeing, and depending upon how things unfold in Egypt, it could have all sorts of different reactions around the region.
And what does this mean for Israel? How nervous is that country right now?
Well, the Israelis said they always wanted democracy in the Middle East. Well, now they might have a little taste of it. And it makes them a little bit nervous because the government, the Mubarak government, was pro-Israel. They're the ones who kept the peace. But the people of Egypt are often quite critical of Israel because they're very sympathetic to the Palestinians. So my hunch is we're entering a prolonged period where there's not going to be progress between Israel and its neighbors.
And finally, what about concerns, Richard, that a group like the Muslim Brotherhood or another organization hostile to the United States will step in and fill the power vacuum? They've been very low profile, but are they laying low, and do they have a lot of political power?
They have been laying low. They're the most organized group. They probably represent something like a quarter of the Egyptian people. It's the reason you need to get the economy back into gear. It's the reason you've got to create space for other political parties. It's the reason you've got to design a constitution so that a group like the Muslim Brotherhood, even if it, say, could get 25 or 30% of the vote, can't control the politics, can't control the government. That's why safeguards, checks and balances, the sort of stuff we in America have written into our political system, it's something the Egyptians will need to build into theirs.
All right, Richard Haas. Richard, thank you so much.